Hello chaps, bit of a different video today. Thought I'd do a layout update and give you some progress on where I'm at and how things are going. A lot of progress has been made thus far, and essentially the entire baseboard or ground floor, is it a floor? Ground level of the layout is complete, and I'm quite excited to show you what's been happening here because there has been a lot of progress made and some very interesting little technical pieces that have been added to this to make it a little bit more interesting. So let's get into it. In my last update, I asked you guys if you could help me out with a name for my West Highland Heritage Railway, and quite a few of you answered, and there were some really great suggestions. I think one was Thistle Street, one was Wee Jasper, but the one I kind of settled on and I thought was really cool was from Derek L436. Derek, thank you very much. Derek is a Scotsman and he suggested Dunromin. And I think that's the one I'm going to go for. And his reasoning was that all these locos which are now preserved or have been brought back to life are done roaming. So as cheesy as it sounds, Dunromin. And I think that's a fantastic name for the layout and it's the one I'm going to go for. So thank you very much, Derek. Appreciate it very much. But thank you all for your suggestions. They were all fantastic and I think fitted the layout quite well. But yeah, I just think Dunromin kind of works really well. So very happy with that. And we have a name for the West Highland line. So Dunromin it is. I'm a big fan of depots and finally being able to put my own in has been a very exciting point because I needed to essentially have both the main and secondary lines in and sorted, connected up before I could really work on the depot and kind of lay out that track design. And I'm really excited. I've been sort of consolidating and looking at a bunch of different images of, Scottish depots and being able to finally put something together that looks fairly similar to what I've seen online. So essentially what I have here is two sort of branching lines that head off into the main sort of engine shed, which is a double shed from Metcalfe, and then a smaller sort of like secondary shed for smaller locos on the other side. I've also added in two sort of servicing pits here and an additional one on the other side where I'll have coaling, fueling, and sort of water on that side. I've also added in a secondary line here so locos can be stored here too. Obviously I don't want the depot to look too busy at any given point. Not every single loco is aimed to be on the layout at the same time, so I'll be switching in and out of locos and having them stored here at any given point. Now I've been fortunate enough to be gifted a couple of Metcalfe kits, and in addition to the two engine sheds, my girlfriend and I have also built a station, a small wayside station, as well as a farmer's barn. Now, I know this is a West Highland layout, but I can't be too picky about these Metcalfe kits because, I got them for free, so I may as well use them and I just guess make them work on my layout. Now, initially I did plan to have Annie on board to kind of show you guys what we've put together, but she's a little bit camera shy, so perhaps I'll wrangle her very soon and get her to show you some stuff. But we've been able to put together these Metcalfe kits during load shedding, which is fantastic. We light a couple candles and build some kits, and it's absolutely brilliant and very romantic, I must tell you. There's nothing quite like building a Metcalfe kit with your girlfriend when the lights are out. Overall, I'm very impressed with these kits. The instructions can be a little bit strange sometimes, but once you've built one or two, you kind of know where they're going with things, so you've got a good idea of what you're doing. So again, we've managed to build this beautiful little station, and the idea initially was to have the station just here. Now, as you can see, a slight problem, the edge of the table's right here. So the station would sort of be overhanging on this side and it would be far, far too close to the rails. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to add an entire section of baseboard here to bring this back a little bit and give it a little bit more room to breathe as the locos pass through. So I'll have a larger station platform built along this side here, and then I think it'll work quite nicely. I can actually have a little car park at the back, so we can have some visitors coming through, and a small little road, I guess, would be nice too. So that's the plan with that. Closer towards the main junction area, you may notice I've created a sort of small head shunt, which is currently housing the Class 153, and a longer head shunt. Now, both of these will be this side of the mountain. Essentially, the large portion of the mountain will begin sort of over here along the line of the reverse loop. and that will be quite a steep incline, so I'm probably going to have to brick it up with some brick supporting wall just to make it work, I think. But essentially I just needed the double head shunt just so I could store some extra wagons and trucks if need be. So let's bring it over to this side of the layout for a second, because we need to talk about a couple of issues that I've been having along the way. One of them is this. Now you might be wondering, what the hell is that piece of foam doing there? Let me tell you. I was reviewing a certain Helgen locomotive. I think it was the NBL 10800. Yes, had a bit of a problem with that, because shortly after I stopped rolling the cameras, the loco was still running, and it caught up on one of these crossovers here. And it continued. The loco was fine, but the carriages derailed. And unfortunately, I watched in slow motion as the locomotive was pulled off the tracks and headed straight down onto the tiled floor. Unfortunately, the 10800 did not fare very well, and I managed to, I think, break a couple of handrails. You saw, if you watched that video, just how detailed that locomotive is, and I managed to snap a couple handrails, break off 2 buffers in that incident, and I was absolutely devastated. I did not mention it. I don't even want to think about it. I haven't even looked at it since then. I know I can repair it, and I will do so, but I'm still a little bit hot sore about how that all happened. As great as the video was, and it was received, I think, fairly well, I was devastated about what happened there. So a bit of a bittersweet moment. So these foam boards here are here as a temporary sort of measure to stop anything from derailing and heading off the board, because as you can see, these rails here are incredibly close to the edge of the board, and there is about a 1 meter drop down, and it's not onto carpet or anything, it's onto straight tiles. So I've sort of created a perimeter of defense around this area, if you will, to protect my locos until I've got my scenic boards up here on this side. Creating an art of illusion, essentially. The illusion of scale, the illusion of space, the illusion of time and distance. And I think one of these things has been employed here. Now, I've got a reverse loop module essentially installed here, and because I'm on DCC, that requires a special sort of motor that essentially switches over the polarity of the locomotives once they've gone through the loop. Now, this entire loop will actually be under a mountain, and the idea behind that is that I can drive locos into the mountain, well, not into the mountain, but under the mountain, and store them, and then have them pop out at a later point. And it essentially creates the idea that these locos have gone on some kind of long voyage somewhere else and have now returned back to Dunromin to continue their duties. And I'll show you how that reverse loop works now with this Class 24 of mine. There's the switch over. Second switch will be about here. There it is again. And that's a loop. It's fantastic, and essentially changes the direction of the locomotive, which is a nice thing to do because I don't have a turntable on the layout, so that's pretty great. Now, one of the things I need to mention is that my baseboard is way too low, and this is a mistake that I've made. In hindsight, I should have it a little bit higher, probably about here ideally, because I'm really craning to get down to base level and kind of operate and work on certain things, and it's kind of annoying me. So I'm going to have to try and figure out a solution to just lift the whole thing up a little bit. Ideally, I probably need some wood blocks that I'm going to just put under the base of the table and then attach the legs to that, and then it'll be a little bit higher. But it will be a massive undertaking, and it will essentially require quite a bit of care to be done at this point. And this is just one of those things that, you know, in hindsight, I should have done earlier, and I didn't think about it. But operating and working on the layout, I've realized that it's just way, way too low. So I'll do that at some point, but it's going to be a mission. Over the past couple of videos, I've sort of been showcasing the layout kind of quietly in the background, I guess. And you may have noticed that there is a bridge here. The bridge is now complete, has been sort of put in an iron oxide red color, and I'm looking forward to getting this sort of connected up with the rest of the structure. What I'll be doing is cutting out essentially some wooden baseboards to serve as the sort of track underlay for the second level, which leads up to the mountain and the whiskey distillery. And speaking of whiskey distilleries, I'm really struggling to find some grain hoppers. I've actually been looking at the UK to see if I can find some grain hoppers. And I'm really struggling. I'm specifically looking for sort of LMS and early BR grain hoppers, because I think that would fit in nicely into the aesthetic of the distillery, it being an old one. But I'm really struggling. So if you know where I could find some grain hoppers, I'm probably looking for about 5 or so. Please do let me know. It's a bit of a problem here in South Africa finding rolling stock. So yeah, that would be great if anyone could suggest. Over on this side of the layout, I'm not quite happy with how things are looking here. Perhaps I need to change up the structure of this, but essentially this is sort of a lead off that would service the main line that leads on to the heritage line. I've got right now my programming track here, which is this sort of brown one that you can see. That's completely separate to obviously the rest of the layout, because the programming track on the Z21 needs to sort of be its own thing. But I've essentially got 2 sort of head shunts here that I'm not quite happy with. To be honest, there's a lot of real estate on this board and I'm not making the best use of it. So I think what I need to do is essentially sort of rejig this entire area and change how it's all structured so it's a little bit more uniform and perhaps leads off in a more straight angle that way, as opposed to this sort of diagonal shift away from the line. Closer towards the main junction area, you may notice I've created a sort of small head shunt, which is currently housing the class 153, and a longer head shunt. Now both of these will be this side of the mountain. Essentially the large portion of the mountain will begin sort of over here along the line of the reverse loop, and that will be quite a steep incline, so I'm probably going to have to brick it up with some brick supporting wall just to make it work, I think. But essentially I just needed the double head shunt just so I could store some extra wagons and trucks if need be. So a couple things along the way that I've learned, obviously one of them being the baseboard. The other is my wiring's not fantastic. I've fortunately had my friend Rinka helping me with a lot of the wiring, so that's been great. I need to sort of work on that and improve it. Downstairs it's a bit of a rat's nest underneath the baseboard. There's some stuff that I definitely need to tidy up. But I'll do that once I've sort of got all the motors and wiring sorted. The other thing is, I think this space would have been more conducive to perhaps a dog bone layout. Having this sort of large, sort of classic model train layout is great, but I am a little bit pushed for space, especially when it comes to filming and moving stuff around. There's not a lot of space between the wall and that side of the table. So unfortunately I kind of have to squeeze in there and it's quite difficult to get certain shots sometimes. But overall I think it's come together very nicely. All the wiring is basically done now. Again, I've just got to put in a couple motors and then we're good to go. But I'm happy with the progress that I've made. This is my first layout. I am still so fresh at this and I still really don't have any idea what I'm doing. And I'm learning along as I go. And it's been enjoyable and I've appreciated the comments. So thank you very much for your support always. It means a hell of a lot to me. So there it is for you guys. A short, quick and sweet layout update. Just something to keep you up to speed with where things are. The eagle-eyed among you might have noticed, certain changes happening as I've been doing my Loco reviews. And I just thought I'd give you a little bit of a broader update as to where everything stands and where my layout's at. I will begin weathering tracks very soon, which I'm quite excited about. It's going to be great to start pulling out the paints and getting going with the actual weathering and start detailing this area. I'm particularly looking forward to the Loco Depot. I think that's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. I'm going to get some gravel and start really mucking things up and making it look really grimy and used, but not obviously too grimy or used. I think this week, following on from last week, where I was sort of suggesting a YouTuber in terms of how we're supporting the community and helping it grow and helping the hobby stay alive. I want to point out Double O Dave. I've recently discovered his content and I absolutely love it. He's got a fantastic sense of humor, some great commentary while he's running his trains. Really amusing stuff. I sat last night and watched a whole bunch of his videos and just sort of sat there chuckling to myself, really enjoying it. So please do check out Double O Dave. I'll drop a link to his channel below and I hope you enjoy that too. Please give him a subscribe. So a little bit of a different video this week. I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, please consider subscribing or dropping me a thumbs up. That's always very appreciated. It just helps me get my channel out to more people, and that's always a good thing, I think. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys very soon. Keep your engines fired and stay on track. All the best.